metal was cold against my back. That's what I remember most about that morning, June 4th, 1942. The way the aluminum skin of our TBD Devastator felt through my flight suit as I pressed against it, checking the twin .30 caliber machine guns mounted in my rear cockpit for the third time. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. The USS Hornet pitched gently beneath my feet, the carrier's deck alive with the organized chaos of launch preparations. Around me, deckhands in colored jerseys moved like dancers in some deadly ballet, their movements precise despite the urgency crackling through the air like electricity. Above us, the sky was that particular shade of blue you only see in the Pacific, so pure and empty it almost hurt to look at. "Eddie, you spacing out on me again?" I turned to see Lieutenant Commander John Waldron approaching, his weathered face creased in what might have been a smile under different circumstances. He was our squadron commander, Torpedo Squadron 8, and he had that look in his eyes. The one that said he knew something the rest of us didn't, or maybe he knew something we all suspected but didn't want to admit. "No, sir," I replied, straightening up. "Just running through the checklist." "Good man." He clapped me on the shoulder, then his voice dropped lower. "Meant just for me. Today's the day, Carter. Everything we've trained for, everything that matters." I nodded, not trusting my voice. I was 23 years old from a small town in Indiana where the most exciting thing that happened was the county fair every August. 6 months ago, I'd been working at my father's hardware store, measuring out nails and cutting rope by the foot. Now I was standing on the deck of a carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, about to fly into what everyone knew would be hell itself. The briefing that morning had been short and grim. Intelligence had confirmed what we'd suspected for days. The Japanese fleet was out there somewhere beyond the horizon heading for Midway Atoll. 4 carriers, maybe more. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers. The largest naval force Japan had assembled since Pearl Harbor, and we were going to find them. My pilot, Ensign George "Red" Morrison, was already in the front cockpit, running through his own pre-flight checks. Red was from Texas, tall and lean with hair that lived up to his nickname. He'd been flying since he was 16, crop dusting his daddy's farm, and he handled the Devastator like it was an extension of his own body. I trusted him with my life, which was good, because that's exactly what I was about to do. "You ready back there, Eddie?" Red's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, climbing into my cockpit and settling into the cramped seat. The rear cockpit of a TBD was tight even for someone my size, and I wasn't a small man. I was surrounded by equipment, the radio set to my left, ammunition boxes below, the twin machine guns jutting up like accusing fingers pointing at the sky. I pulled on my leather helmet, adjusted my goggles, and checked the guns one more time. Each one held 500 rounds of .30 caliber ammunition. Against a Zero fighter, they'd be about as effective as spitting. But they were all I had. The Devastator itself was already obsolete, and we all knew it. Slow, poorly armored, with a torpedo that failed more often than it worked. The Navy had better planes in development, but they weren't here. We were, and we'd have to be enough. Around us, the other planes of Torpedo Squadron 8 were being positioned for launch. 15 aircraft in total, each one carrying a Mark 13 torpedo slung beneath its belly like a pregnant whale. Each torpedo weighed over a ton, packed with 600 pounds of Torpex explosive, enough to crack a carrier's hull wide open, if we could get close enough to release it, if it didn't malfunction, if we survived the approach. Too many ifs. The flight deck officer was signaling now, his yellow jersey bright against the gray metal. Around the ship, I could see the other carriers of Task Force 16, the Enterprise, the Yorktown. Each one was launching its own aircraft, filling the sky with the thunder of radial engines and the smell of aviation fuel. Red throttled up our engine and the big Wright Cyclone roared to life. The whole aircraft shook and vibrated, every rivet and seam protesting. I felt it through my spine, through my skull, a bone-deep rumble that drowned out thought. The deck officer brought his flag down. Red released the brakes and we lurched forward, picking up speed as the deck rushed beneath us. The carrier's bow loomed ahead, and then suddenly we were past it, dropping toward the ocean for a heart-stopping moment before Red pulled us up and we clawed our way into the sky. The air was smooth, the morning calm. Below us, the Pacific stretched away in every direction, endless and indifferent. From up here it looked peaceful, beautiful even. You couldn't see the sharks or the depth or the cold that would kill you in hours if you went down. We formed up, all 15 planes of Torpedo Squadron 8, and set course to the southwest. Commander Waldron led from the front and we followed, our formation tight and professional. We'd practiced this 100 times, 1,000 times, but practice and reality are different animals. The flight out was strange, quiet despite the roar of engines. I watched the ocean slide past below us, looking for any sign of the Japanese fleet. We'd been given a heading based on the best intelligence available, but the Pacific is a big place. Finding a fleet out here was like finding a needle in a haystack, except the needle was trying to kill you. I checked my guns again. Loaded, armed, ready. I scanned the sky for enemy fighters, knowing they'd come, knowing we wouldn't see them until it was too late. Red's voice crackled through the intercom. "How you doing back there, Eddie?" "Peachy," I said, which was our code for scared out of my mind but holding it together. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." We'd been flying for maybe 90 minutes when I saw it. A smudge on the horizon, dark against the blue. At first I thought it was a cloud or maybe my eyes playing tricks. But as we got closer, the smudge resolved into shapes. Ships. Lots of ships. "Contact," someone called over the radio. "Enemy fleet, bearing 270. And there they were, the Japanese carriers, spread out below us like toys in a bathtub. I counted 4 of them. Big ones, fleet carriers, their decks swarming with activity. Around them, a screen of destroyers and cruisers formed a protective ring, their wakes cutting white lines through the blue water. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. We'd found them. Now we had to kill them or die trying. Commander Waldron's voice came through, calm and steady despite what we were all seeing. "This is it, boys. We're going in. Remember your training. Stay low, stay fast, and God be with us all." And then we dove. The Devastator dropped like a stone, Red pushing the nose down as we accelerated toward the ocean. My stomach lurched up into my throat and I gripped the sides of my cockpit, watching the altimeter unwind. 5,000 feet, 4,000, 3,000. We leveled off at about 200 feet, skimming the wave tops, our torpedo armed and ready. The plan was simple. Get close to the carriers, release the torpedo at about 1,000 yards, then get the hell out. Simple, but not easy. That's when the sky exploded. The Japanese had been waiting for us. Their combat air patrol, Zeros, dozens of them, came screaming down out of the sun like hawks on rabbits. And behind them, every gun on every ship in that fleet opened up at once. The air around us turned solid with tracer fire. Red tracers from the Japanese, arcing up toward us in beautiful, deadly ribbons. Black puffs of anti-aircraft fire burst all around, each one a sharp crack that I could feel through the airframe. A shell exploded just off our starboard wing, close enough that I could feel the heat wash over me. "Zeros!" I screamed into the intercom, swiveling my guns up as 3 fighters dove on us from above. I opened fire, the twin 30s hammering away, spent brass cascading into my cockpit. The noise was incredible, overwhelming, a continuous roar that drowned out everything else. The Zeros flashed past, so close I could see the pilot's face and the lead fighter. They pulled up and came around for another pass. I tracked them with my guns, firing short bursts trying to make every round count. To my left, one of our planes took a direct hit from anti-aircraft fire. It simply disintegrated, one moment flying, the next moment gone, replaced by a ball of orange flame and black smoke. No parachutes, no survivors. "Stay with me, Eddie," Red shouted, throwing the Devastator into a hard turn. The torpedo under our belly made us sluggish, slow to respond. We were like a fat goose trying to outrun a falcon. Another plane went down, this one caught by a Zero that came in from behind and raked it with cannon fire. I watched it flip over and slam into the ocean, the impact sending up a geyser of white water. The carriers were getting closer now. I could see their decks clearly, see the aircraft parked on them, see the gun crews manning the anti-aircraft batteries that were trying so hard to kill us. They looked huge from this angle. Impossibly large, their sides painted in dazzling camouflage patterns. We were taking fire from every direction. The air was full of metal, and there was nowhere to hide. I kept firing my guns, sweeping them back and forth, more to feel like I was doing something than any real hope of hitting anything. A Zero made a pass at us, and I walked my tracers up toward it, but it was too fast, too maneuverable. It rolled away and was gone. "I'm hit," someone screamed over the radio. "I'm going down." Another plane spiraled into the ocean, trailing smoke. We were dying. Torpedo Squadron 8 was being slaughtered, torn apart by overwhelming firepower and superior aircraft. And still we pressed on, because that's what we'd been ordered to do. because those carriers had to be stopped. Red lined us up on the nearest carrier. She was turning hard to port, trying to throw off our aim, her wake a boiling white curve in the blue water. The range was closing fast. 2,000 yards, 1,500, 1,200. A shell burst directly in front of us and Red flew us straight through the cloud of black smoke it left behind. The aircraft shook violently, and I heard something tear in the wing, but we kept flying. "Almost there!" Red shouted. "Almost there!" 1,000 yards. 800. The carrier filled our vision now, massive and lethal. I could see men running on her deck, could see the muzzle flashes from her guns, could see the rising sun painted on her bow. "Torpedo away!" Red called, and I felt the aircraft lurch upward as a ton of weight dropped from our belly. The torpedo splashed into the water and began its run, a thin white line in the blue marking its path toward the carrier. Red banked hard right, trying to get us out of there, but a Zero was waiting. I saw it line up, saw the flashes from its wings as it opened fire. Cannon shells walked up our fuselage, punching through the thin aluminum skin like it was paper. Something hit me in the shoulder, a hammer blow that spun me around in my seat. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. There was blood, I realized. Mine. Quite a lot of it. "Eddie!" Red was shouting. "Eddie, talk to me." "I'm okay," I managed, though I wasn't sure that was true. My left arm wasn't working right, and there was a burning sensation in my shoulder that was rapidly spreading down my side. "I'm okay. Get us out of here." But there was nowhere to go. We were surrounded, swarmed by Zeros like wolves around wounded prey. Red was doing everything he could, jinking left and right, trying to stay unpredictable. But the Devastator wasn't built for aerobatics. I got my guns working again, firing one-handed at anything that moved. My vision was starting to blur at the edges, and I knew that was bad. Blood loss, probably, or shock. Either way, I needed to stay conscious or we were dead. Another Zero made a pass, and I managed to get a long burst into it. I saw my tracers punch into its fuselage, saw smoke start to stream from its engine. It broke off, trailing a black plume, my first and only kill. And then I looked back toward the carriers, and I saw something I'll never forget as long as I live. The ocean was on fire. One of the carriers, I learned later it was the Akagi, had been hit by dive bombers from the Enterprise. Her deck was a mass of flames, aircraft exploding like firecrackers, fuel and ammunition cooking off in a continuous roar. The fire spread to the ocean itself, burning fuel on the water, creating an inferno that rose hundreds of feet into the air. And she wasn't alone. As I watched, too shocked even to feel fear anymore, I saw another carrier take hits. The Kaga, her deck erupting in orange and red. And then a third, the Soryu, bombs falling on her like the fist of God. In the space of 5 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning. The ocean around them was a sea of flame, black smoke rising in towering columns that you could probably see from Midway itself. We'd done it. Not us. Not Torpedo Squadron 8. We'd lost almost every plane without scoring a single hit. But the dive bombers that came after us, they'd caught the Japanese with their pants down, their decks full of fueled and armed aircraft, and they'd turned those carriers into floating bombs. "Would you look at that?" Red breathed, his voice full of awe and horror. "Would you just look at that?" I couldn't speak. The pain in my shoulder was getting worse, and I was having trouble focusing. But I could see. Oh God, could I see? The ocean was on fire, and I realized in that moment that there was nowhere safe. Not on the ocean, not in the air, not anywhere. The war had turned the whole world into a killing ground, and we were all just trying to survive one more day, one more hour, one more minute. "We need to get you back," Red said, his voice suddenly urgent. "You're bleeding pretty bad back there." "Yeah," I said faintly. "That sounds good." The flight back to the Hornet took forever, and no time at all. I drifted in and out, sometimes awake, sometimes somewhere else. I dreamed about Indiana, about the hardware store, about my mother's kitchen and the smell of fresh bread. Simple things, safe things. When we finally touched down on the carrier's deck, I couldn't get out of the cockpit on my own. Corpsmen had to lift me out, had to carry me down to sick bay. I remember looking back at the Devastator as they took me away. It was shot to pieces, more holes than metal, leaking fluids onto the deck. How it had gotten us home, I'll never know. Sickbay was chaos. Wounded men everywhere, the smell of blood and antiseptic sharp in the air. A doctor took one look at my shoulder and immediately started barking orders. I felt hands on me. felt the sharp stab of a morphine needle, and then everything got soft and distant. I woke up hours later, my shoulder bandaged and immobilized, my head fuzzy with drugs. A nurse told me I'd been lucky. The round had gone clean through without hitting anything vital. I'd be fine, she said. I'd fly again. I wasn't sure I wanted to. Later, I learned the full cost of what we'd done. Torpedo Squadron 8 had launched with 15 aircraft. Only one came back, and that was only because it had gotten separated from the formation and missed the attack entirely. 14 planes lost, 29 men dead. Commander Waldron, Red's best friend Lieutenant Davis, all the guys I'd trained with, flown with, played cards with the night before, gone. But they'd done their job. While we were being torn apart by Zeros and anti-aircraft fire, we'd forced the Japanese carriers to keep their combat air patrol low, to focus on us. And that meant when the dive bombers arrived, there was nothing to stop them. 4 Japanese carriers destroyed. The Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and later that afternoon the Hiryu. 4 fleet carriers that Japan couldn't replace, along with hundreds of experienced pilots and crew. The heart of the Japanese naval air power, gone in a single day. The Battle of Midway was over. We'd won, though the cost had been terrible, and the war would go on for 3 more years, island by island, battle by bloody battle, all the way to Tokyo Bay. But June 4th, 1942, was the day everything changed. That was the day we stopped retreating and started pushing back. That was the day I saw the ocean on fire and realized that nowhere was safe, but also that we could win, that we would win. I flew again eventually. Different planes, different carriers, different battles. I made it through the war somehow, when so many others didn't. I came home in 1945, went back to Indiana, took over my father's hardware store, got married, had kids, lived a normal life. But I never forgot that morning. Never forgot the sound of those engines, the smell of smoke and cordite, the way the sky turned solid with tracer fire. Never forgot the faces of the men who didn't come home. And I never forgot the ocean on fire, burning so bright it turned day into hell, showing us all that in war, there's no such thing as safe ground. There's only the mission, the moment, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll see tomorrow. I'm an old man now, writing this in 2006, looking back across 64 years. The world has changed in ways we couldn't have imagined back then, but some things don't change. The price of freedom, the cost of courage, the weight of sacrifice. Torpedo Squadron 8 gave everything that day at Midway. They flew into certain death because that's what duty demanded, because their country needed them, because someone had to go first, had to draw the fire, had to make the sacrifice that would give others a chance. I was there. I saw it. I survived it, though I'm not sure why I was spared when so many better men weren't. But I'm grateful I can tell this story. Grateful that their sacrifice meant something. Grateful that when we saw the ocean on fire, when we realized nowhere was safe, we didn't run. We kept flying. We kept fighting. And we won. That's what I want people to remember. Not just the battle, not just the tactics and strategy and ships, but the men. The boys really, most of us barely out of our teens, who climbed into obsolete aircraft and flew into hell because it was the right thing to do. Commander Waldron knew, I think. That morning when he clapped me on the shoulder, he knew most of us wouldn't be coming back, but he also knew it had to be done. "Today's the day, Carter," he'd said. "Everything we've trained for. Everything that matters." He was right. It was the day everything mattered. It was the day I saw the ocean on fire. It was the day I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's flying anyway, knowing the odds, accepting the cost, and doing it because someone has to. That's the lesson of Midway. That's what those men died for. And that's why, 64 years later, I can still close my eyes and see it all as clearly as if it were yesterday. The blue Pacific sky, the carriers burning, the ocean itself on fire, and I can still hear Red's voice in my headset, calm despite everything. "Almost there, Eddie. Almost there. We made it, Red. Not all of us, but enough. We made it home. Edward, Eddie." Carter passed away peacefully in 2006 at the age of 87, surrounded by his family. He was one of the last surviving members of the Battle of Midway. His medals, including the Navy Cross, are on display at the Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida, along with a photograph of Torpedo Squadron 8 taken the morning of June 4, 1942. Of the 15 men in that photograph, only one would live to see the end of the war. We remember them all.